So here's the thing most people won't admit about the path to financial independence. It can be really lonely. Your friends don't get it. Your financial advisor probably thinks you're crazy, and you're stuck navigating the ups and downs of the path to FI and the messy middle of FI, mostly on your own. I started the Mindful Fire Legends community because I realized I needed this space for myself. It's a weekly community space for people on the path to financial independence to connect, support, and encourage each other. We meet every Wednesday at noon Eastern to connect, practice meditation, journaling, and mindful conversation, exploring topics related to mindful fire and building a life we love now. It's intimate, honest, and the kind of community I wish I had earlier on in my path to FI. And I've made it super affordable. It's just $10 a month or $100 a year. That's it. There's no commitment, and if you're not loving it, I'll give you your money back. Learn more and join us at mindfulfire.org/join. Again, that's mindfulfire.org/join. Welcome to the Mindful Fire Podcast, a show about crafting a life you love and making work optional, using the tools of mindfulness, envisioning, and financial independence. I'm your host, Adam Coelho, and I'm so glad you're here. If you're ready to start your Mindful Fire journey, go to mindfulfire.org/start and download my free envisioning guide. In just 10 minutes, this guide will help you craft a clear and inspiring vision for your life. Again, you can download it for free at mindfulfire.org/start. Let's jump into today's episode. Guillermo, welcome to the Mindful Fire Podcast. I'm thrilled to have you here.
Thank you, Adam. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's exciting. I've been following your journey a little bit on LinkedIn. I know you made a big shift in your life recently, and on your LinkedIn profile, it says life architect. So I love that, not only because I wanted to be an architect. I went to school for architecture initially and then switched to business. So I love architecture, and I just love thinking more strategically and bigger about what's possible for our lives. So excited to dive into all of that with you today.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm also very excited about the topic.
So let's start by having you share a little bit about who you are, your journey, and what you're up to in the world.
Okay, fantastic. As you said, my name is Guillermo. It's the Spanish for William. I'm born and raised in Spain, but I spent a long time living abroad. I lived in the US and then in Europe. For 20 years, I followed the corporate life and ladder. I worked first for a number of years in consulting in McKinsey in the US, and then for the last 15 years in Google. And I think climbing the ladder, I'm very fortunate about that. Helped me study in the US. It helped me grow a lot as a person. But also it took a toll. The level of investment in time and effort climbing the ladder. It was at one point, I always thought that eventually I would be happy if I reached a certain level. But as time progressed, I realized that there was a lot of things I wanted to do that I didn't have the time to do them. So last year, after a long reflection, I decided to actually quit corporate life and give myself the space to actually, what you said, to redefine what success meant for me and redesign my life, not according to some external kind of conventions, but to the things that really brought me joy and purpose. And that's, I'm in the middle of that journey, but a year has passed since I quit corporate. And I'm actually very excited about how things are playing out and what is coming next year for me in that respect.
That is awesome. And yeah, I'm super excited to have this conversation with you because I am also 1 year out of Google and corporate life and kind of building this new chapter of my life. And before we get into how that first year is going for you and what some insights and reflections you had on that being 1 year out, I'd love to hear, how did you get to the point where you thought, now's the time to make this leap? And I asked this because I think a lot of people are in the position that you and I were in. They are working in a career, they've been successful, they've moved up in the organization, they're making the best money they've ever made. They might feel this pull to something else, or maybe a push from running away from something, maybe a little bit of both sometimes, but the money and the identity and all these things are caught up. I'm curious, what was that process like for you coming to terms with this is the move I want to make and now's the time?
I think for me, there's probably a few pieces that came together. So I spent enough time in corporate, and I was very lucky that actually things went really well in the sense of I got promoted a number of times and I got more and more responsibility, which also I think helped me realize that to dismantle a myth or a belief I had that is eventually I would be happy, maybe with a bigger role or a bigger team. And I was seeing that I was progressing, but still there was something missing. I felt very fortunate about my path, but there was a growing concern about, okay, I'm not doing things that I would love to do because my work is filling all my time and I don't have time for anything else. And so one is that realizing that that path was not bringing me happiness or fulfillment. The second one, I think, is I was also lucky to have a certain financial enough financials to be able to say, okay, I can, even if I quit, I can be for a few years without requiring to then go back into earning a big salary. And that gave me some peace of mind in the sense, okay, I have the space for that. And for me, I think the third one is also realization. I think that time is limited. And probably that's something that you get more clarity on that the older you are. Because when I was in my 20s, I felt life is eternal or limited. And I think I was figuring out that no, I think actually it's very limited. And I want to be able to use my time the way that it's going to bring me the most purpose. So financial, I covered. The other thing that was a big struggle for me was that sense of identity. So I realized how much of my identity was coming from my corporate success. So it was definitely also that I needed to overcome, which was the tyranny of the external expectations. Somehow I felt that the status I got by my position in a big corporation, it was something that was part of my identity. And when I quit, it felt like a decision that a lot of people around me in my life, they didn't understand. And sometimes I think for me, owning my own life and realizing that I know what is going to make me happier, even if some people around me, they're not understanding it, and shifting from external expectations into kind of the internal drive of doing what I really love, it was probably the final step to make my decision clear. Getting there, it was not easy, but at one point, the decision was super easy, actually. It felt like it was the only way. I don't know if that's something also that resonates with you, but eventually when I was ready, it was, there was no way I could stay. I needed to go.
Yeah, it makes sense. It sounds like it took you a while to get there, but when you got there, it was like, now's the time. Let's do it. It sounds like in that process and both leading up to that point and then subsequently after you left, you mentioned redefining success. And so I'm curious, what did that process look like for you? I've had my own journey, happy to share how I've been thinking about it, but the corporate structure provides a very clear element of success. But what was that process for you? And I guess, how would you define success now for yourself?
Like, it has changed completely. I think before probably success, it was defined by others in the sense of the position I was getting. So every promotion or being in a senior position in a successful company, it felt like a validation of I've done it. And it's something that I was very proud of, but it was just very externally admiration of others. Even the salary, so it's not only for a big salary helps you buy things, but also it was somehow felt like a sense of self-worth. So if I'm earning a big salary, it means that I might be worth it. And I think it felt like I was slave from those external expectations. And right now, my definition of success is very different. So my definition of success is having control of my time, which for me is a luxury. For example, I started going on Wednesdays, going for lunch with my parents, they're growing older. And being able to do that, before it would be impossible with the career and all the different client meetings. So being able to define every day where I devote my time, which is my most precious asset, for me, that's one of my key definitions of success. The other one also that I have is the percentage of my time that I'm doing things that I would do for free. which doesn't mean that I'm doing them for free, because a lot of the things I do, then I'm paid for, or I get some returns on that. But for me, even if I was not paid, I would still do them. I would enjoy them a lot because they give me a lot of joy doing them. And because also they give me a lot of purpose, because I believe in what I'm doing. And those two things are driving a lot of my decisions of where I devote my time to, which are things very different of how I would do them in doing my corporate life.
I appreciate that. And I think that it's something that I've struggled with this year is I feel like this year for me was a lot of letting go of the pace of Google and just go more, better, never good enough. Like it's just a company of people who have been straight A students, and it just keeps that going. And it's made it successful. And I'm grateful for the ride I was on and all the things I learned, the people I met. But now I'm in this new chapter, and that doesn't need to be the yardstick anymore, just how much and how fast and all of that. And my brain wants to keep me focused on that. But I've gotten up better and better at catching myself and coming back to the more intuitive pace. For me, I've always said, when I think about my vision going into this next chapter, it was build this business in my own time, in my own way, not the right way, but the way that feels good to me. And another thing that's been challenging for me is the focus on money as the yardstick. That I agree with what you said about the salary, right? Being a feeling of pride and validation and all that. And in the times where it was really challenging, I would be looking at my pay stub and be like, okay, that's good. That's good. It's still there. But I still find myself making decisions for money. So for example, when I left, there was a couple options I could do for building the business. I did some group coaching last year, which I really enjoyed. And I also have done quite a bit of corporate workshops. I knew that I wanted that to be a part of it. But I basically made a calculation that I could convince one person to give me some of their money, or I could convince another person to give me more of a company's money. And so I went that route, and it wasn't as easy as I thought. And more importantly, it doesn't need to be the only or primary metric. And you mentioned you're doing things that you would do for free. Have you caught yourself in that, like focusing on the money, or how have you let go of that in terms of choosing the direction?
I think it's not easy to then completely escape the money trap. It's so ingrained in us that then it's connected to our self-worth, especially when you work in big tech. We had good salaries. So then there is a tendency to compare and sometimes to fall back into that trap. So sometimes I have that temptation, especially with corporate clients, that then you say, okay, they pay much better. So then I then try to reconnect saying, you know what, I want to help also other people. So sometimes what I do is my rate changes, whether it's corporate or it's individual, and sometimes it's based on how much they can pay. And sometimes I'm willing to do some pro bono as well, because then I think, again, there are things that I would do for free in the sense that I enjoy the whole process. And for me, I think the most important part of money is that I don't want to be thinking about money. So I think money is important to make sure that you cover all the needs that you have to live the lives that you want to live. And for me, that was important. I think in my case, one of the things I did is I separated the two things. So I built a business, and it's a real estate business with my brother, with leverage from capital and also some work from the partners that we work with. It's something that brings all the kind of financials that I need to make sure that I don't need to think about money. So then when I work on the things that really bring me purpose, coaching, like some of the team coaching, psychology work that I do, the money element is already covered by the other business. And so I can just focus on that without being concerned about whether I need to be more hours or do more work on that to be able to pay the bills.
Yeah, I like that. So you have these various aspects of things, and you are able to price accordingly on your coaching and your psychology stuff that you do. So you can work with people who might not be able to pay the high rate that a corporation would, but you can still make that accessible for them because you get fulfillment out of that. And one thing that you mentioned a couple times is purpose. And so I'm curious, what is your purpose and how are you living into that?
Yeah, and purpose can sometimes be a very intimidating word because it feels like you have to be something really big and changing the world. And sometimes I use purpose, sometimes I use meaning, but it's basically why I do what I do. And I think what I've discovered this year is that I get a lot of fulfillment and I get that kind of sense of purpose or meaning by helping people that externally they look successful, but internally they're very unhappy, and helping them to get to know themselves better and understand what is the life that they would like to live, where their talents, their values, and their life, they're more aligned, and helping them make those changes in their lives so they have a much more fulfilling and joyful life. And I realized that's something that brings me a lot of purpose because it resonates a lot with my own journey. And somehow I fully connect to how they feel now because I used to feel that way in the past. And I realized that my own story and my own experience can help them a lot. And I think especially now, I think we live in a time where there is a crisis of meaning. So there is more and more people that they're a bit lost in life and they don't have that kind of light of really waking up in the morning, having clarity of why they're in this world and why they do what they do, apart from paying the bills or getting a payslip. And for me, I think that's where I can help the most. And that's where my psychology work fits in, my coaching, and I'm trying to see how I can increase the number of people I can help. So that's my answer for now. I think it's probably a moving target in a way, because I think it's as we go into this journey, I'm learning a lot about myself. And maybe you ask me a year from now, I will have a more fine-tuned answer, but that's where I am right now.
There's a huge problem in the financial independence movement that rarely gets talked about. I've chatted with hundreds of people nearing financial independence, and I keep hearing the same thing. They say, I've spent all these years doing everything right, saving, investing, building financial freedom, yet now that I'm almost there, I'm stuck. I have no idea what I actually want my post-fi life to look like. This lack of clarity keeps people stuck in one more year syndrome, continuing to work because they're afraid of making the leap into their next chapter. That's why I created the Firestarter Mastermind, a 10-week small group coaching program to help you think big about your life and what you actually want your post-fi life to look like so you can start living it right now. And here's my promise. At the end of this 10-week program, you'll not only have a clear vision for your post-fi life, but you'll have specific and tangible ways that you can actually point to for how you're already living into that life right now. The next cohort starts in early March, and space is limited. So if you're ready to get clear on what you want and start living into your post-fi life now, we should chat. Go to mindfulfire.org/call and grab some time on my calendar. We'll chat about your situation, the ideas you have for your post-fi life, and explore if the Firestarter Mastermind can help you start living those. No sales pitch, just a casual conversation to get to know each other and see if this is a fit. Grab some time at mindfulfire.org/call. Let's get back to the episode.
Yeah, it is evolving, right? It evolves in terms of how it shows up and how we embody that purpose. And I think about myself, I feel fairly clear about my purpose being creating opportunity through connection. And a former guest on the podcast, a mentor of mine, Marty, she basically called me out and was like, what does that even mean? Specifically, what does that mean? Because there's a lot of ways you could do that. And so for me, it's helping people connect with themselves, each other, and their biggest vision for their life. Because I've had experiences where I've used the power of envisioning and creating a bigger vision for my life to make some incredible progress in my life and make some incredible things happen. And I resonate a lot with what you're saying about people just not having that sense of meaning and feeling just going through the motions and not having anything they're really working towards. And I love challenging people to think bigger about what they really want and to reconnect with the dreams they've had as a child. I did some group coaching and I worked with some people that outwardly very successful, but just wanting to get clearer on what reconnect with that vision. And one woman I had in the group, she always wanted to have a farm and just was super passionate about permaculture and regenerative agriculture and things like that. And so we just got clearer and clearer on how that could come to life. And I always say, it's not like you have to leave your life and go do this thing, but a lot of people are afraid to even go there. They're afraid to think, they think if I get this idea, then I'll be discontent with my current life. In my opinion, it doesn't have to be that way. You can get clear on what you want and start doing what I call mini experiments, just trying things. For her, it was like, go and volunteer on a regenerative farm, or go work there, or whatever it is, go try it. You don't have to buy a farm for millions of dollars and leave your life behind. You can just try it out. And so I think that it continues.
I totally resonates what you're saying. I think there is a tendency that we have live life in autopilot, kind of default mode. And I think time passes and you are just following a path that maybe you didn't even choose, but because society or something, external expectations, you just think that's the only way. And then you get into that path and you don't even realize that's making you very unhappy. And I think what I love about what you say is that you break from that kind of external expectation of this is the way, and you get a bit more freedom to say, okay, I can be the architect of my life. I can be the designer of my life. And you tap into the things that bring you joy and that make you alive. I think there is a lot of possibility. And I agree with you that it's not about thinking and then doing, but it's probably you need to just do those experiments that you were saying and experience and do a little bit of that. And then reflect on how it makes you feel. And I think if it makes you feel more alive, then do more of that. And if it doesn't, then change and do some other things. And I think it doesn't have to be an all or nothing approach. But I think, again, for me, it took years. But I think I did a lot of experiments in the process. And probably for you, the same. I think it's a slow process, but it's very worth it because I think it's that exploration.
Yeah, I agree. And I think starts with asking the question, what do I really want? And what do I think I want? And then just to start trying it little by little. And along the path, when you start walking the path, you're going to start noticing things that you wouldn't notice if you were just standing at the beginning. And I think that it's a good reminder because I came into this new chapter having a pretty clear idea of what I thought. But over the year, I've really started to notice, oh, wait, there's certain ways that I was operating that I was letting money be the main thing rather than enjoyment. We had a guest on the podcast probably 2-3 years ago at this point. It's a woman named Sarah McCrum, and she wrote a book called Love Money, Money Loves You. And she basically was like, use enjoyment as your primary measuring stick. Does it feel good? Like you said, try it. Does it feel good? Keep doing it. If not, try something else. And that was a lesson. The other thing is just how focused I was on Google. As I left Google and I thought, oh, I'm going to go after these corporate workshops. Might as well go to the low hanging fruit. But that was a money decision. And it was fine. But I feel like I'm still seeking validation from Google. And I've had 14 years of that in grad and perf and all the things. I don't need to do that anymore. I can choose a different yardstick and venture out. And maybe it would be a little bit harder to get in the door, but I'm going to meet people. I'm going to learn. And the more wrapping it full circle, like my purpose is creating opportunity through connection. The more I'm keeping that in the forefront of my mind, the more I'm prioritizing my time in that way, the better I feel. I feel like a lot of points during the year, I was just like sitting behind my keyboard writing emails. In one chapter, it was Google ABPs, Administrative Business Partners. They plan offsites. I thought I want to do offsites, but I was just like sitting here behind this computer and it's like, there's no connection. It's just me more or less spamming people. Not a great feeling. But so I recently was like, why don't I just reconnect with my old friends, catch up with them, tell them what I'm up to and ask them if they know anyone. And it was great. I had a conversation with a woman, Mila, who I worked with in the AdSense team in like 2011. And we had the longest conversation we've ever had. And it was awesome. It was like no time had passed and it felt so good. And maybe it will turn into something financially, workshops or whatever. But either way, it was a great use of my time.
I know it makes a lot of sense. I think that the more you are connected with your inner mission and what you are trying to accomplish, I think you enjoy the journey much more and you have the drive to overcome obstacles in a very different way. And life has challenges, no matter whether you are corporate in pursuing your mission. I think that you have good days and bad days. But I think when you are connected with what you really want to do, the bad days, you will find the resilience to be able to overcome those. For me, I think the money piece is important to make sure that you have it covered, that you don't have to worry about the life of paying the bills. I think that's why I think there is a lot of financial planning to do it even before and say, okay, I have that covered. But once that's over, any other thing I would agree with you is coming from ego, that kind of self-worth issues, and they can distract you from your core mission, which for me, I think is very important. Also, for me, it's also a great way to minimize regret. I think that eventually, imagine that they tell us then you have 1 year to live. Or actually, all the things I've done in the last year, I would be so happy that I've done those. And I think that's something that for me is priceless to be able to do that.
Yeah, I agree. So I'd love to explore this idea of life architect and designing your life. Is there a framework that you use when you work with your clients?
So the way I work with my clients, so there are like three components. There is one piece that is very focused on self-knowledge and self-discovery. I think the journey starts by looking inside. And there are normally three main things that I look at. So there is one, I do a lot of strength-based coaching and development. But basically, it's helping the clients identify their unique talents and strengths. Because I think that for me, there is also a principle that is when you apply your unique talents every day and it's aligned to the life that you have, magic happens. Because then you focus on making your strengths stronger. And actually, you can see the impact. Yeah, there is more enjoyment, there is more impact, and I think everything gets easier. There is another one on values as well, that is helping them get clarity on what are the core values for the life. Because again, some of them realize that their life is not aligned to the values that they hold very dear. So I think that's the second one. And the third one on self-knowledge is understanding their inner needs and the why they do what they do. I think it's going deeper into the psychological kind of personality. Once you have done that kind of self-knowledge, you look at what are the things, the potential selves that you could be that would align to that kind of set of strengths, values, and main needs. I don't know if you know a book called Walking Identity from Hermine Ibarra.
No, I don't.
Actually, the thesis is there is not a single vocation or a true calling that we have. We have a lot of potential selves that we could be, and we need just to explore them. Instead of just thinking and then doing, based on your passions, your strengths, or things, do a small brainstorming of 30 minutes with 10 things that you could be, and then take the time to do small experiments in each of those, and then see how they felt. And that's a great way actually to then connect what you have learned from your self-knowledge into things that, could make sense for you in the life. And for me, I think the last step, there is something around definition of success. And again, when we are driven by external measures of success, everything seems very rigid. There is only like one way of doing things. And I think when you actually connect it and define it internally, what success means to you, there is the freedom of defining your life according to how you want to live it, that I think is very liberating. And that's where the design piece comes into place, that there is not a single way of living life. And I think that's how then we bring everything together.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good stuff there. I agree. It starts with self-awareness and self-knowledge. And what are there practices that you suggest? Is it conversation? Is it journaling? Maybe it's all of those things.
I think so. For self-knowledge, I use basically three main things. So I think for strengths and talents, I'm a big believer of Clifton Strengths. And from Gallup, I think it's an amazing assessment. From there, I think the challenge is that it's 34 different talents and it can be very granular. So what I do from there is how you can connect the dots into something that is more digestible by the person. But I use something based on that for that piece. Values, there is a lot of different exercise that one can do. If they put you 200 values, different values, you have to start scratching out the things that are nice to have, but not that critical. Use the list into the idea is the 5 things that, you really want to have in your life. And again, I think it's not an easy exercise. It requires a lot of self-reflection. But I think it's once you get to that clarity, I think it's like a North Star, because then that's something that is a very useful exercise. And then I think the other tool I use a lot is the Enneagram. I don't know if you...
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. I haven't gone too deep into it myself, but I know people love it.
Yeah, I think what I love about the Enneagram, about self-knowledge, is probably the deeper piece that I use, because it goes a lot into the why. So not of the things that you do, but the why you do what you do. And there is a theory around each of us. We have a specific existential need that if we don't have it covered, we're in deep trouble. And then we have a lot of strategies, unconscious strategies to cover that need. So getting that more consciously and people understand some of the things that they do, why they do them, is also something that I think is very useful for in that part of self-knowledge.
Yeah, it makes sense. Bringing these things to light, creating that clarity, it makes a big difference. In my experience, when it's like holding all of that in my head, swirling around, it's very hard and overwhelming. For me, it's like overwhelms me, so I just don't want to do anything. And I've been feeling that a little bit over the last week because it's end of the year. Everything's on the chopping block. What direction do I want to go forward next year? And as I can get those things out of my head onto paper, I can work with them more concretely. This conversation has been amazing in terms of priorities and measuring success and all these things. It's like, okay, let's pick a few of these, let them guide the behavior in steps towards the vision, and then just see, how does it feel? How do I feel using these other things like enjoyment and fun and connection as the measuring stick rather than money and title and things like that?
I agree. And there is another element that I find it very useful for my clients, which sometimes they don't have. That is making sure that we have space and time to do this work. Because I think this is not this kind of work and self-reflection. It's not something that happens that you can just book 30 minutes in your calendar and you will be able to do it. Sometimes we are so busy doing so many things that we don't realize that if we just give ourselves the space and say, okay, I'm going to take a week and I'm not going to have the calendar full of things. And I think that's where I can see that a lot of clarity can happen as well. Going into nature, being a bit away from the crazy, noisy daily life, I think it's something that I find it very useful for myself and also for people I work with.
Creating the space in your life to do this work. And I think that's part of what has been a challenge over the last week. I'm having these questions and I have just little pockets of time between calls and podcast recordings and things like that. And the nice thing is I can work through some of this in these conversations with awesome people like yourself, but having a space to put everything away and just think, and then trusting that it's going to develop over time, right? We don't have to it feels like we need to figure it all out and then move forward, but it's an ongoing figuring it out. And as you get more information, you put the pieces together and it takes time and you have to have that space to do it. And I think that's what I always encourage people. And when I do the work I do, it's like, I'm not really here to teach you that much. I'm here to hold space for you to ask yourself these deeper questions. And I feel like that's a win-win, right? It's great for me because I don't want the responsibility of telling someone what they need to do with their life because I don't know. They need to ask themselves and trust what comes up and play with it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we tend to overestimate what we can do in a week. And we tend to underestimate what we can do in 5 years. And I think sometimes we are hard on ourselves, and that's why we get ourselves too busy, because we say, okay, we are not going fast enough. We're not doing enough things. And that's
right.
We punish ourselves. And I think for me, my realization is that I need to be more compassionate with myself in the short term as long as I have clarity in the long run where I'm going to go. And I think it's, if you get that kind of focus, I think it's impressive what you can accomplish in the long run.
Yeah, that really hit me. The be compassionate with myself in the short run, as long as there's clarity in the long run. That sums up this year for me, really. I that pace of that Google mentality of go do more faster. Like my brain's, you got to be farther along, and it's no. Focus on the progress. You're making good progress. You've tried several directions that maybe weren't the best. They didn't work out the way you had anticipated, but you learned from each of them and you used that to build to the next thing. And the direction is still clear. Mm-hmm. So with that, Guillermo, let's switch gears now into the Mindful Fire Final Four. Are you ready?
Okay. Yes.
Let's do it. So the first question is all about vision. You're in this new chapter, and I'm curious, what is that long-term vision for you in this new chapter of your life?
I think so. Let me answer with two things. Answer you with two things. So one is, I realize that I focus now more in the momentum and the direction more than a long-term set vision. There is a kind of a quote by Naval Ravikant. I love it. It says, health, love, your mission, in that order, nothing else matters. And I think for me now, I've been a lot of doing things on my own personal health, in that sense of self-care, love for my family, love friends, and so on, prioritizing relationships, which is something that probably when I was working in corporate, they were deprioritized. And I think the mission, what I have clarity now is that it's about helping others get the similar life to what I have now, where they prioritize their internal way of measuring success and get clarity in that versus being defined by others, and trying to get that and help the largest number of people. So when I think about it, right now I'm doing a lot of one-on-one coaching, something coaching, but I think it's limited in the sense of, because I also prioritize my own self-care and my relationships, I have a limited amount of hours that I can help people one-on-one. So one of the things I'm envisioning is how I can do it also in one to few, one to many, also building products to help people, again, know themselves better and change their life to get that kind of sparkle in the eyes when they wake up in the morning. And instead of saying on a Monday morning, oh my God, I need to work, is that they say, oh my God, I am able to work. I'm able to do the things that I
get to do this. Yeah.
So it's a long answer to your question, but I wanted to give you the context, and that's the direction I can see myself going to.
Yeah, I love that. You don't have to have it all planned out, figured out. You can just follow the direction and feel the momentum and check in. How does this feel? Am I enjoying this? Am I not enjoying it? And reprioritize along the way. Love that. So the second question, Guillermo, is what piece of advice would you give to someone early on their path to financial independence?
Why? I would tell them to rethink their relationship with money and think about money as a way to reclaim their time. And I think for me, that changed. Before I would think about my time is something I sell for money and then money to buy stuff. And that sometimes I didn't even need. I think changing that perspective helped me double down on on my saving as well. Because for me, it was the deposit that was going to buy my freedom in the future. Cutting down expenses that were not making me happy, or that there was just this escaping from it, the hedonic adaptation, no? That then they start paying you more and you start spending more just by inertia. So for me, the change of mindset is what helped me then achieve all those things that actually they were really useful then for that kind of that planning on getting there.
Yeah, I love that. It really is a double whammy, right? The more you can realize that any money you save is a deposit on your future freedom and current freedom as well, right? It gives you more options. It gives you more financial resilience. Layoffs are happening constantly all over the place, right? If you save and invest as you're making money, you're buying yourself options. You're buying yourself security. And at the same time, you're making it less expensive to live your life, which means that you can get there faster. So it's really a double whammy. So I love that mindset. And that was really big for me. I used to tell myself every dollar I save is $10 in retirement. And maybe that math doesn't work out, and maybe I took it too far. I certainly did, but it's helpful, right?
Yeah.
It's really helpful. And I love that, buying future freedom. All right. The third question is, what piece of advice would you give to someone getting started with meditation and or mindfulness?
I think, and this is pulling from my own experience, is that don't get yourself too ambitious. Because I remember when I started doing meditation, I was led by this kind of insecure overachiever mindset. I want to be the best meditator, and I was overly ambitious, which I think created a lot of frustration and impatience. And I think for me, the whole point of meditation is avoiding that. And I stop doing and I start being, and I just being in the moment. And for me, the best advice, this I'm saying for myself when I started, is to start small. And I think the beauty of it is small steps every day. They're going to get you a much longer way than then just trying to then become the best meditator in the world in week 2. So that's even 5 minutes. And then going from there, because I think once you get the benefit of the peace of mind that you get, it doesn't become like a chore. It becomes like the same as taking a shower every day. That is part of your natural, and you can grow it from there. But I think start small is what I would say.
Yeah. It's funny how that answer is a microcosm of the whole conversation, right? It's let go of the idea of being the best and external validation, and just enjoying the process and each step along the way. I love that. And the last question, Guillermo, is how can people connect with you online, learn more about what you're up to, and learn more about what it's like to work with you?
I think the easiest way to connect with me online is through LinkedIn. I think I'm posting also there a lot of my journey as well. I'm giving an updates because it helps me. It's like my own journaling. It helps me with my own sanity as well and making sense of what I'm living. And I share it because a lot of people, they told me that they find it very useful. So I don't have any other social media. I'm very not digital in that front, but I think LinkedIn, I'm fairly active, and also there I can be connected also one-on-one, and I'm fairly responsive there. That's how we connected as well, Adam. So
That's
then
true.
You can testify that it was that we were able to connect.
That is true. And I appreciate that. And I've really loved this conversation, Guillermo. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your experience and wisdom with the audience.
Thank you so much, Adam, for inviting me. I really enjoyed the conversation. And congratulations and well done on what you're building here with the podcast. I think it's fantastic.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And yeah, it was nice to be able to talk through this and process, because we're on a similar timeline in terms of leaving corporate and the same corporate in Google. So we have that experience in common. So it's just really nice to talk through this. And for me, it was a nice kind of crystallization of a lot of the things I've been thinking and a lot of conversations I've been having, all of which people will hear on the podcast in the next month or so. So thank you again for being here.
My pleasure, Adam. I really enjoyed the conversation, and also it made me reflect a lot, both in my own thoughts and also hearing you. I think it was very useful.
Awesome.
Thanks for joining me on today's episode of the Mindful Fire podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, I invite you to hit subscribe wherever you're listening to this. This just lets the platforms know you're getting value from the episodes and you want to be here when I release additional content. If you're ready to start your Mindful Fire journey, go to mindfulfire.org/start and download my free envisioning guide. In just 10 minutes, this guide will help you craft a clear and inspiring vision for your life. Again, you can download it for free at mindfulfire.org/start. Thanks again, and I'll catch you next time on the Mindful Fire podcast.